Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with coverage of the first round of the 2018 Tata Steel tournament, the first major tournament of the year. The tournament is held in Wijk aan Zee, a coastal town, a small, tiny town in the Netherlands, and the world elite has gone there to play this event. The world champion is there, Magnus Carlsen, ex-world champions are there, Anand and Kramnik, and 5 of the 8 candidates that will play in the 2018 Candidates Tournament in March in Berlin are also present. It's going to be a great event. I will give you the results of round 1 at the end of the video, but first let's look at the game of 5-time winner of this event, former classical world champion and reigning rapid world champion Vishwanathan Anand. He has won the Tata Steel tournament 5 times, the same as Magnus Carlsen, so let's see if one of those 2 players can win it for the 6th time. In his first round, Anand was white. He played the reigning European champion, the Russian Grandmaster Maxim Matlakov. Let's see what happened. Anand opened e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, a6, bishop back to a4, knight f6. We are in a Ruy Lopez in the Spanish opening. And d3 was played by Anand. I'm using the comments from the live broadcast with Grandmaster Van Kampen, Grandmaster Sarawan. And they explained that this move is played a lot nowadays by the elite players. The old move, castling kingside, gives black the opportunity to play the Marshall Gambit, which has a good reputation for black. And that's why d3 is mostly played nowadays. b5, kicking the bishop back, bishop b3, and bishop c5. And Grandmaster Van Kampen explained that this is the main move against the d3 Spanish, unless black had already committed his bishop to e7 earlier. c3, d6, and bishop g5. And Van Kampen said it's Magnus Carlsen who in many Spanish and Italian variations likes to put his bishop on g5, so it can't be too bad if the world champion plays it. It's also important, as they explained, that that Anand has not castled yet, as this bishop on g5 will be chased down. Let's have a look. Indeed, Matlakov chased it with h6, bishop h4, and then g5, bishop g3, and now this knight on b1 might want to come to d2 and then to f1. And also in this position, white might consider attacking on the king side with h4. So that's why it's important that white has not castled yet before playing bishop g5. So again, the bishop was kicked back, and here knight h5 is a move that was looked at in the live broadcast, and then d4 is a good reply. Matlakov decided not to play knight h5, he played bishop back to a7. Knight bd2 developing, knight a5 hitting this bishop, bishop c2, and knight h5. Look at this. Matlakov, the European champion, puts 2 knights on the rim. And as usual, only beginners and grandmasters can play this. Anybody in between should not put both knights on the rim like this. a4 from Anand, putting some pressure on the a file, which is quite condensed for black, and Grandmaster Van Kampen thought this was a clever idea. b4, that's a pawn sacrifice, and good pawn sacrifice from Matlakov. Matlakov played the opening really well. It was taken, knight back to c6, attacking the pawn on b4. b5 was played, knight b4 anyway, knight c4 from Anand. And now Matlakov decided to take the bishop pair. H takes and g4 hitting the knight. Anand commented after the game that he felt that Matlakov had done quite well out of the opening. The knight has to play, and in the live broadcast the grandmasters were looking at knight fd2, but then queen f6 is a very good move. It's threatening checkmate with queen takes f2, because that bishop is also covering the f2 square. And then if white castles here, that's dangerous, because then black has h5 and has a strong attack. So after queen f6 you can also try knight e3, bishop takes, f takes, a takes b5, and black is doing okay. You cannot take back on b5. Let's have a quick look at that variation. You cannot take back, because then you lose. Rook takes a1, queen takes, and knight takes c2 is a very nice fork. Black wins. So all that after g4 and then knight f d2. But Anand decided to play knight h4, which is a better move. A takes b5 for Matlakov. Anand took back, and here comes a beautiful combination. This was really a very nice game. Look at this move. Bishop takes f2, check. Wonderful. Anand took the piece, and now black wins his piece back with rook takes, queen takes, and the bishop on c2 is hanging. Knight takes c2. Black has now his pawn back. The pawn he sacrificed on b4, and we have an equal position. The queen is attacked, so queen a4 was played by Anand, hitting the knight. Queen f6 check, an in-between move. King g1 and knight d4. The threat is now knight e2, and we see a nice variation in a minute with that move. Anand played b6 check first, and here for a while the grandmasters in the studio thought that Anand was in big trouble. They looked at king f8, but it turned out it was not so bad for white after all. King f8 was not Matlakov's choice. He played bishop d7, hitting the queen, and now queen d1 back is the only move, and Anand played it. You have to be careful. You cannot go queen a8 check on the attack and trying to promote your b-pawn, because after king e7 you cannot play b7. Looks good, but you'll get checkmated. Let's have a look. Knight e2 check. I promise you a nice variation with this move, and it's really nice. King h2, and here comes a queen sacrifice. Queen takes h4 check. You have to take, and you see the checkmate move. Wonderful. g3 checkmate with the pawn. This bishop is taking the h3 square away, and the knight is taking the g1 square away. And the pawn is protected by the knight. Absolutely wonderful variation. So Anand of course saw that and played queen d1. And c takes b6, and now black is a pawn up. He was a pawn down, and now he's a pawn up. King h2. Black castled on the 26th move. Very late to castle, but he did. Rook f1 hitting the queen. And queen g5. Black decides to give back his extra pawn. Knight takes d6. Pawn was taken. Bishop e6. Knight hf5. Knight takes. E takes, and bishop d5. Anand in his interview afterwards said that both players had seen the following variation, which is d4, then there is queen h5 check, king g1, and a very beautiful move, bishop takes g2. What is this? Well, the king will now be driven into open space. King takes, queen h3 check, king f2, queen h2 check, king e3, queen takes g3 check, king e4, and the white king is in a minefield. But after bishop d5, Anand did not play d4, he played queen e2, and he says, I now just get a free ride. I can press this position without any risk. So this is the move that Matlakov had missed. White is better now. Queen f6 was played. As Anand said after the game, Matlakov found himself to play queen f6, and now I win a pawn. Black is in some trouble. His e5 pawn is hanging, and you cannot protect it with f6, because then there is d4, and after e takes d4 there is rook f4 with a big advantage for white. So that's why after queen e2 Matlakov decided to play queen f6, giving Anand the g4 pawn. Anand took it. White is now again a pawn up. King h7, knight e4, bishop takes, d takes, and Anand said afterwards that he felt very optimistic at the beginning, but he found then later that it's very hard to break through. White is a pawn up and can win play for a win, but it's not so easy to break through. Rook d8, rook c1, rook d4 improving his rook, rook c7, and rook b4. Queen e2 protecting the b2 pawn, and here king g7. Black makes a waiting move with the king as he can't improve his pieces any further. So it's up to white to show that he can break through. Rook c8, queen g5, rook c6, rook b3, rook c3, rook back to b4, b3, rook d4, both players are maneuvering, rook c6, attacking the b6 pawn, so rook back to b4, queen f3, another rating move with the king, rook d6, and the king back to g7. How will Anand break through here? Rook d5, queen f6, and king g1, and Anand called this afterwards a clever move, as now, as we'll see in the game, white will be able to offer a queen trade on d5, because the white king will then be close enough to the d pawn. There's no black d pawn, but we'll see what Anand meant in a minute. Again a waiting move from white, from black. Queen d3, another waiting move. King f2, rook d4, the rooks were swapped, and here we have that d pawn from black. And it's important in many variations that the white king is now close to that d pawn. On h2 it was too far away from the d pawn to offer a queen trade. Queen b5 from Anand, and here Anand said afterwards that if black had played h5 here, that there would be still a very tough technical task ahead. But Matlakov blundered here. He played queen d8. And why is it a blunder? Because now we get this offer of a queen trade that black cannot go into. Queen d5, and if you trade the queens, you lose. Queen takes, e takes, king f6. It looks okay. It looks like black is going to clean up those white pawns, but look at this nice move. If you want to look for yourself how does white win easily here, put the video on pause. It's a very nice little move. d6. And there's nothing that black can do. He cannot make any move, cannot make any king move. King cannot go and try and stop the d pawn. So white has all the time in the world to maneuver his king around and will win this endgame. So after queen d5, Matlakov had to go back to f6, and Anand played g4, and now e5 is a big threat. Queen h4 check is simply answered by king f3, and there are no more checks. Matlakov played king in g8, but resigned after king f3. There's nothing black can do against the move e5, which wins the d4 pawn. For example, king g7, then e5, which wins the d pawn. There are no checks. If you play queen g5, queen takes d4, and white is 2 pawns up. The b6 pawn is hanging as well. There are no checks. Matlakov did not want to play this position. He resigned after king f3. Anand rolling back the years, and not just Anand did this. Let's have a look at the results of the first round. The results from the first round of the Tata Steel Masters 2018 played on Saturday the 13th of January. Wesley So and Shahryar Mamedyarov, 2 players who will meet as well in the Candidates tournament in March, played a draw. World champion Carlsen against another candidate Caruana was a draw. The English Grandmaster Gawain Jones promoted last year from the Challengers to the Masters, and he played a draw against Karyakin. 8 times Russian champion Petr Svidler played a draw against another player who promoted from the Challengers group last year, Bhaskaran Adiban from India. And 3 decisive results. Former world champion Vladimir Kramnik, also a candidate in March, beat the Chinese player Wijk. We saw Anand against Matlakov, and the Dutch player Anish Giri beat the only female player in the event, Ho Yifan. 3 wins for white, and the second round will be played on Sunday January 14th, and I will be here after the round to tell you what happened. So Anand and Kramnik are rolling back the years. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel. Please leave a comment. And if you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media. You also may want to check out my Chess to Progress channel. The link is in the description box. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.